Hello, good morning. I think that is me live now. Hello and welcome to today's masterclass. If I could just ask somebody kindly to let me know that you can hear me okay, and that you can see the slide deck, that would be amazing. So I can see people are joining now. So yeah, if somebody could just type into the chat and let me know that you can see the slide deck and that you can hear me okay before I carry on and go through the masterclass with you. So while people are joining, and if someone could just do that for me, that'd be brilliant. What I wanted to do just while we great, Richard, thank you, good stuff. So while I just wait 1 minute for people to join, because I know sometimes it can be difficult to get into these rooms, I wanted to ask you as a starter, while we're waiting for everyone to join, because you've all taken time out of your diary to join today, I wonder if you could let me know into the comments what the biggest challenge is with your team right now. If there's one thing, one burning issue you could solve, what would it be? Because that way then, at the end, I'll answer in the Q&A if I've not covered it already. And it also helps me to build out further masterclasses for you. So, rocking and rolling. Good, we are rocking and rolling, guys. So, so just if you type into the challenge, what's the biggest challenge for you with your team right now? The one thing that you'd really like to solve? And then we'll wait a couple of minutes and then we will get cracking on, because I don't want to hold you up and we've got a lot to be covered today. If you don't feel like sharing into the full group, but I would encourage you to do that, then just let me know privately. I think you can put to admin and just send it to me. But what's interesting in these masterclasses is to see actually that lots of the challenges that people are experiencing are some that you're probably experiencing too. So, okay, right, where are we with attendance? Right, I think we're probably nearly good to go now. I can see we've got a lot of people still joining though. Okay, right, I'm going to carry on and they can catch us up. So, good morning and welcome to today's masterclass, which, as you know, is how to build a proactive team who actually help and support you to grow your business. And in the workshop, I'm going to show you how to get your team and your managers to think to the position where they're dealing with all the day-to-day issues, taking the initiative, thinking about the future, where they're planning ahead, considering the commercial impact of their decisions and actions, and deliver the results that you truly want that will help you to grow your business. And I'm going to share how you can get your team to the point that they're easy to manage. Because from what I see and what I've seen and experienced right now, there are loads of CEOs and MDs who feel like the team actually are a bit more of a burden to them and are always needing them, and that they're almost having to sort of like drag the team along with them. Whereas what they really want and what they deserve, because these people are working so hard, is to have a team who actually support them, who are on the journey with them, and who are like really behind helping them grow the business. But unfortunately, if you're here today, I'm going to assume that you're probably not getting that a lot of the time, and maybe you're feeling like your staff are taking too much of your time, that they're wanting a lot from you and relying on your input, and all needing things from you, maybe all in different ways too. So what I'm going to share with you today are some of the reasons for that, first of all, to get you to start thinking about like which might apply to you and where you are with this right now. And then, most importantly, I'm going to go through with you what you can do about it to start improving the results that you get from your team, so that you're seeing them progress in the way that you want to. Let's move the slide on. Yeah, seeing them progress in the way that you want to, so that they're doing the right things, focusing on the right work, and ultimately making the right decisions. So they're being commercial and proactive, and they're focusing on those things either make you money or are important to have in place, because as you grow, you need them in place in order to do that. Now, I hate long introductions, but I do need to introduce myself quickly. So I'll share just a couple of points with you about me, so that you know that what I share is worth your time. So I'm Leanne Bridges. I spent 30 years leading teams in corporates and growing SMEs. And during the last 12 years, specifically, I've been advising growing businesses on how to get the best results from their people and teams. I did this myself as a director, brought the slide up a bit early there we are, in a niche gas business that was predominantly a chemical engineering and manufacturing focused business. And we grew that business and team across Europe. And then for the last 5 years, I've been operating my own business, advising CEOs and MDs and senior stakeholders how to do the same. And I've got over 50 recommendations across all the different platforms for my work now. So if you'd like to know any more than that, then the best thing to do would be to take a look on LinkedIn if we're not connected already. And I do share daily insights on that platform. So if you're not connected, then please do connect with me and scan that QR code there, or just type my name in. And then where it says click more, where it says more, if you can click more and then connect so that we're actually connected. And that way, if you've got any questions then about what I'm saying today, then you can ask and I'll be really happy to help you. So that all being said, let's get into the good stuff. So from all the businesses I've worked with and spoken to over the last 5 years of doing this specific type of work, I've noticed that there are 5 key reasons why businesses are struggling to get their teams, and in particular all of their managers, to deliver the results that they want and to really be proactive, and why businesses are sort of struggling right now to grow together, and instead the CEO or MD are feeling like they're pulling teeth when it comes to getting results from their people. And so I'm going to run through these with you, but what I want you to do as we go through is just to think about those that really resonate for you. And if you can just type into the chat function for me, the number of the one that's resonating or a bit of information about it, because that really helps me to understand what people need most in this masterclass. And it's also interesting for you to see the sorts of challenges other people are coming up against. So let's go through these. We're only going to do this quickly. So number 1 is this. Some of your team just aren't taking the initiative. So they're not spotting what needs to be done or what issues need sorting, or maybe they're not thinking ahead to prevent problems without you stepping in. And it could be something operational, or maybe customer issues or team problems that just drag on for far too long, and they're just not anticipating what's coming down the line, which leaves you firefighting things instead of having that time to sit and actually think about your business and how you're going to move it forward. And then because these people in the team aren't being proactive and they're not asking other people or other teams to do what's needed of them early enough, other people get inconvenienced and then they get frustrated. And so not only is the CEO or MD having to spend too much of their own time on this stuff, but it's also wasting other people's time, putting other people out. And then the MD's building complaints because like other managers or other team members aren't being given the notice they need and to get things done. And so this lack of initiative can keep your company from stopping growing, or actually what I've experienced in some cases is actually struggling to keep up with current demand, because the business is just relying too heavily on either the CEO or MD or just too few people. So that's number 1. So let me know into the chat whether number 1 is coming up for you. So I can see some of you starting to do that now. That's great. So number 2 then is that even though they're holding management team meetings or team meetings, the team just aren't following through in the way that they need to with all the actions that they commit to. And these meetings can feel a bit like talking shops, going around the houses, and you get to some actions, but then after the meeting, people don't follow up and do what they committed to. And then like the CEO or MD are like, even though they're certain that they had an agreement about the action that needed to happen, then in the next meeting, find that progress hasn't been made. And if it has, people have gone off at a bit of a tangent. And, you know, these team members are all smart, they're experienced, they seem like the right people. Some of them have done this type of job before, so they should know how to do all this stuff. You know, and some of the others might have been with these companies for a long time, grown with the business, been promoted internally, they're being paid high salaries now, but they're not going off and finding out what they need to do to get things done. And my clients will sometimes say to me, you know, no one showed me every last little thing to do, but it seems like I'm having to spend a disproportionate amount of time guiding and chasing some of my people up. So let me know whether that one's resonating for you. Yeah, I can see some of them. Great, thank you. I can see there's some private comments here. Yeah, so point 1, someone's saying is affecting them. Someone else is saying point 1 is affecting them too. So good. Well, I'll come back to those in a minute. So point 3 is that some of the team members are falling short. And even though the CEO or MD have had a conversation about what needs to happen instead and the results they want, they continue to fall short on some things. And if they do make the changes that are being asked for, it can be a bit short-lived. And the problem is that some of these people are key people in the business and they might have known them a long time and really respect them. Maybe they're a director, quite often this is the case. And they're certain that, you know, they should be able to do these things the way that they need to be done. And they keep sounding like they know what they're doing. But unfortunately, things just don't seem to change. And, you know, they'll leave these meetings or conversations and then just go back to doing the same old thing again. And so then there the MD is a month later having the same conversation with them. So let me know, is number 3 affecting you? And then number 4 is that, and this kind of sums all of this up, and I really would like you to know whether this resonates for you, because number 4 ties everything together, and I see this such a lot, and it's probably the most important point here, is that both the team and their business lacks a well-defined process that allows the team to perform at their best without the need for this constant oversight. So the absence of a management structure, a process, is forcing them to be into all the detail, and they don't want to be micromanaging things, and they know it's not going to move them forward. It's not going to move the team or the business forward. So they haven't got a framework to be able to do that. And I'm here today to share with you that process, how you achieve that, the process and the framework that you need to have in place so that you can see what's happening in your business, what your team are doing, and so that your team are proactive, because it's actually just a step-by-step process. It's quite linear, but there are certain things that you need to do and that your teams need to do, and the process itself needs to be implemented to allow them to perform at a high level. So that's number 4. And then the final thing is that businesses are just kind of like sitting there and kind of hoping that things will get better. And that's because they're so busy operationally that they're just not giving this the time or attention that it really needs. And therefore, they're never getting their teams to the levels that they could, and the business won't grow at the rate that they want it to until they do. And they're just kind of really hoping that things improve. You know, things like, you know, hoping that when people have been there another 6 months, it might work out a bit better. Or, you know, when they hire the next person, I hear this quite a lot, they think that it will make things easier, or they put in a few more hours and just hope it gets them over the hump. But unfortunately, look, it doesn't really get any easier without focus. It just doesn't. It just gets more complicated. The longer you leave it and the more you grow. So if you haven't done that already, then let me know into the chat which of those 5 resonates the most for you. And if there's something else that's coming up, if you can let me know that too, because there are more than these 5 reasons. But if there's something specific that you've come with today that I've not mentioned here, then please do tell me. But whichever one of those resonates with you, I'm going to share the steps to take and the process that's going to get better results from your team. So let me see what's happening here. So I've got quite a lot in my private messages here. So I've got someone saying that they're very interested in number 4. So far, yeah, so definitely point 2, the day-to-day tasks are getting in the way. All of them are resonating for somebody else. What's this here? Setting expectations of role boundaries as a team grows. Yep, going from setting all hands to the pump to needing to carve out specific roles in order to make career progression more transparent. That piece about carving out specific roles, we're going to get into that in quite a bit of depth in a minute, because there's some shifts and nuances there that you really need to make if you've not made them already. Good. Okay, well, look, please do carry on sharing into the chat some of those things, and I'm going to crack right on. So there are 3 parts to this today. There are company structure, support systems, and strategy. So I'm going to start with this company structure. Now, there are 2 parts to this, and I smile because I almost know what people think when I say this. So you can tell me if that's true. So there are 2 parts to company structure, and the main parts here are roles and responsibility and delegation. And quite a lot of people at this point say, I've actually got that covered. I've got some job descriptions and people kind of know what they're doing. But if you resonate with any of the points I mentioned in the last section, I see in other businesses and they're happening to you, then I'm just here to share with you, like, for all the experience I've got of doing this, that you might have job descriptions and you might dig out data in, but there are, as I've mentioned a minute ago, there are nuances that you'll be missing and shifts you need to make to actually get the results that you want. So I'm going to start with roles and responsibilities. This is not about job descriptions for junior team members, although you do need those. So let me go through it with you. So first of all, look, if you don't have job descriptions, then you need to get some written, agreed with the team and issued out. But that in itself is fairly straightforward. Most people kind of know that's a thing to do if they've not done it already. But what I really want to talk to you about today, and what's more common, is that businesses quite often will have some job descriptions, and but despite doing that, the teams still aren't clear about expectations. And I see this just so often where, like, you, the MD or CEO, you think it's pretty clear what should be happening, but it's not getting done. So what's happening here is either team members just don't understand them enough, or they're not relevant to the roles that they're actually doing right now. therefore they're not really worth the paper that they're written on. And most people I speak to, they quite often can't even find them. So the first step here is to revisit and redefine roles and responsibilities, because people need like 100% clarity on what you want from them. People are so much happier when they've got certainty. So then through this process of doing this, as you revisit them, you just need to make sure every team member knows exactly what they need to achieve, and that every core part of the processes that you've got are covered off. And I was working with a client recently that really brings this home, and we discovered that an issue that was causing him headaches pretty much every week. And it turned out that one of the parts of the sales to fulfillment process didn't belong to anyone. It was sitting between a few people, which meant that whenever it got tricky, it landed on the MD's desk because nobody was stepping in and taking responsibility at that point. Now, that sounds quite basic, but the reason that it hadn't been fixed sooner was because the solution wasn't straightforward. The person who should have been handling it was rubbing people up the wrong way. So the task had been quietly taken off of them, and the team were kind of muddling through, which worked fine when everything was going smoothly. But in a complex production process of a fast-growing business, you'll know that things rarely stay smooth for long. And so, if the MD was ever going to get to a point where he could focus on growing the business and not be sidetracked by these sorts of things, we had to resolve these types of problems, and specifically this. We had to get him out of the weeds of it all. So with this particular problem, we tackled that in 2 steps. So first of all, we put in place a short-term fix. I think that's the important thing here. It's about what quick win can you get to get it off your plate. So we got it off his plate because he could give it to his ops manager, but then we had to sort out all the conversations with the people involved to get that happening, because sure, running a business, you'll know that there was going to be some resistance to that needing to be done. So once we'd done that, we then tackled the bigger issue of the employee who was rubbing people up the wrong way, and I helped him and his team work through that and how to deal with the situation. Because the truth is, how could that business ever grow while they've got people in post causing problems across the whole business? And I totally understand how this happens, because I've been there and been put in that position. And you worry that by addressing it, you're going to just make the whole problem even bigger. So you kind of just sit on it a little bit. But despite the concerns that he had, we did resolve the problem. And when we actually got into the detail with the chap that was the issue, he actually didn't realise that people were finding him that way, that he was being abrupt. He was actually really horrified. He was a bit upset about it. And now he's trying really hard. The team appreciate the effort that he's putting in, and production is so much smoother than it's been in a long time. And so as a result of all of that, which probably took us, I would imagine, somewhere between 4 and 6 hours, or the MD, 4 and 6 hours maybe across a few weeks. So in total, the MD has got back at least an hour every week. And more importantly, he knows that he's not going to keep being interrupted, and that orders are going to be fulfilled without him constantly stepping in, which was a relief to him, because then he hasn't got to worry about that anymore. So you need to check all your key processes and decisions have an owner. And all your roles and responsibilities, they need to be exceptionally clear, consistently communicated, and directly tied to your business objectives. And I don't just mean for junior staff, I also mean for your management team too. And this is where people can sort of come a bit of a cropper, because often we think that the management team should know what's required of them as they're senior, they're experienced. But I find this is where a lot of issues actually sit. And I'm working with somebody right at the moment, and one of his directors was overwhelmed all the time and just wasn't making progress. And he's got a really strategic role and absolutely needs to make progress. The business growth is dependent on it. And what it boiled down to in this case was lack of clarity. So he just felt pulled in loads of directions and didn't know where to focus. And when we corrected that, he started delivering. So we need to be really clear about what's required of our managers too. Otherwise, we're just relying on both of you and the senior manager having the same understanding. And it's all these assumptions that are kind of causing the problem. The assumption that we're all on the same page, when in fact you're both seeing things slightly differently, which means you're not getting the outcomes you're expecting, which makes sense, doesn't it? If you're both slightly misaligned, you're not going to be going where you think that you want to. Now, what I find is when I say this to clients initially, they can be a bit concerned about doing that, this sort of resetting of expectations, that it won't land very well, especially with the senior team, but it always does. It's just about how you approach it. It's about telling people, it's not about telling people how to do the job, but about agreeing on key activities and results. And I help clients approach that in a way that's engaging and inspiring, because that's critical, so that you can get it done and get it done without much effort. And there are a couple of simple frameworks that I use for this, so it can be really really straightforward. And what you'll find for all the parts of the processes I'll talk to you about today, often I've got a shortcut or I can make it easy because I've done it so many times. And I guarantee you that if you do this and get your team clear about what's required, they will be more motivated and they will get more done for you, 100%. So that's roles and responsibilities. Do let me know into the chat if you've got any questions or things coming up for you. So I can see here. Okay, I'll come back to some of those. I won't get too distracted now, but please do keep popping into the chat, and then I'll come back periodically and have a look. So that's roles and responsibilities. Then we need to address the elephant in the room, delegation. Now, I'm not going to teach you to suck eggs today, because I think every business owner, CEO and MD on the land knows that they need to delegate and outsource. But sometimes with some things, and this is about where it's about small shifts and nuances. Okay, so with some things, it can be difficult to let go of control or give it to the team. Maybe you've been burned by it before and reluctant to do it again. Or it seems like for some tasks, there's just no one else that can do it. I know I've felt like that in the past with things before. Or maybe you think you've actually already delegated it, but it's not working. So the issue here is twofold. Now, obviously, I've said to you, before I found this issue myself, I'm owner of my own business now. I feel it sometimes. I know what it's like. We can be protective of some of the work when it comes to delegation. But really, you must be able to hand off responsibility for getting day-to-day work done to your team, because the risk here, and I'm sure you'll know this, is that you are then, if you don't do that, the single point of failure in your business. And by that, I mean that if something happened to you or you weren't well, you'd need the business to run really well without you, wouldn't you? So, and plus, for some of you on the call, you might own the business too, and at some point want to exit it through a sale, or maybe want to leave it running and draw an income. So it needs to be able to function on a day-to-day basis without you fixing issues, without it being so reliant on you. So in order to delegate effectively, as well as doing it, you also need to be able to hand off responsibility in a way that you feel comfortable with. So you need to have the reporting in place so that you know the work's been completed, it's getting the right outcomes and results, and so that at a glance, you know that everything's on track. And I'm going to cover this point off in a minute in a bit more detail because it's part of another process, but it's an important aspect, obviously, to delegating, because you want to be certain that things actually get done. But the second part of this delegation piece is making sure your team is up to scratch to deliver on the delegated work. So that brings us to team development. Please don't sigh. My experience here is that lots of CEOs or MD, despite wanting the team to be developed, they've got their heart in the right place, they just actually find the thought of this a little bit kind of, I don't know, a bit boring or a bit something, because you've got so much to do. You don't really want to be thinking about team development. So, they don't necessarily want to actively do it. So bear with me, though, because it's important, and it actually doesn't need to take very long. It's just about cracking how to do it. And once you've done it, it's worth the effort. So, sometimes we bring people in and we put them in roles thinking that they've got stacks of experience, or maybe the job's quite straightforward, and we really are just kind of shoehorning them into jobs, shoving them into roles, thinking that they should be capable. I'm sure we've all done it. I know I've done it. And we kind of just hope that they swim. But then, unfortunately, sometimes some of them start to sink. So you need to have good development plans in place. Now, for junior team members, this can be really straightforward. For them, you just need to make sure that they've got the training that they need to get up to speed quickly on the job. It's very geared towards practically being able to do the job. But slightly different for your management team or your senior leaders. For them, you need to ensure they've got the right strategic insight that they need and the capability to deliver on the responsibilities you're giving them. It's not about putting together a basic development plan for them, as I'm sure you'll know. It's really about aligning them with the vision, the strategy, the culture, and how you want things done in your business, and giving them the tools and authority that they need to make high impact decisions, and supporting them to continuously refine their leadership and operational skills so that they get you the results that you want. So it isn't just about a tick box exercise. It's about making sure all the team members are equipped to really run your business effectively and make the right decisions. And unfortunately, again, people, I find from experience, do make assumptions around this, even when they think that they're not. But if I just tell you about a case with a client, and this, he hadn't made an assumption at all in this case, or he had made an assumption, sorry, but it was very clear what was happening. So he had an FD and he really practically written him off, thinking that he just couldn't manage the team. He was really underperforming and it was creating issues like all across the business. As you can imagine, like people weren't getting invoice processed, they weren't getting the informations and reports that they needed, and everyone was grumbling about it. But in this situation, this chap just didn't know how to manage the team. He was the FD was a technical professional, and rightly or wrongly, leadership didn't come naturally to him. So what he actually needed was a bit of help to get the people part of the role right. And there were only a few issues, things like how to set goals in an effective way, how to give feedback to people in a way that lands, a few other small people management areas that really needed correcting. So I helped the MD to identify and deliver the development he specifically needed and deliver it in such a way that he engaged with it. And as a result, this chap has completely turned around, and the MD is staggered. And if I'm honest, I probably am too, because it really did seem like things might have gone too far. But the MD is really glad that he resolved it. And I can't promise that for everyone. Obviously, I can't promise everybody's up to the job. But, you know, for this MD, actually taking that bit of time to do that small piece of work has saved him the cost of the dismissal or the chap going off sick or whatever else might have happened, rehiring, all the distraction for the MD, or worse still, really letting it drag on and cause continued problems. All those costs would have been huge, but instead he dealt with it, resolved it. You know, can you imagine? I'm sure you can imagine how relieved he was at that. But without this level of like alignment, development, empowerment, you will find yourself continually stepping back into roles that really you long since outgrown, or dealing with these issues repeatedly. So look, for those of you that are seeing this as, I'm just looking to see what's going on here in the chat. For those of you that are starting to see this as an issue that you want to resolve, for those of you who have identified with some of these common problems from the first part of the workshop, and I guarantee you that there are others who feel the same way as you, I'm going to offer some free calls at the end of the session. And so there's a QR code here. No, here. There's a QR code here that you can scan, or a link there. Now, I know it's not the most exciting thing in the world I'm offering here to talk to you about, but on a call, we can go through a strategy for you so that you can get your company structure in the right place, get the right roles and responsibilities sorted, talk about how you can approach the development of your management team, and then talk about how you can implement all of that, because that's what I've done with so many clients before. And as you'll see, like here, I'll give you this QR code again in a minute, but you know, there's stacks of people talking about the difference that it's made for them, and I've done it successfully with them, and it absolutely can work for you. So what you'll find is that QR code are on some of the slides as we go through, but I want to crack through. But if you know you want a call, then I've got limited availability to do that in the next 10 days, but I have set some time aside for it, so grab one of those, like if you think you want one. So part 2 then, support systems. So we just spoken about setting out roles and responsibilities and delegation. Now I want to talk about what happens after you've set out what's needed, because that's obviously step 1, but how do you build on that and maintain momentum? Because it's one thing to do it once for a person, or you might even do it for the whole team once, but that isn't enough, is it? So you would need to build the right support system to enable you to do that, that allows your team members to feel valued, to feel like they're progressing, and to feel like they're really contributing to the company. Because if you can tick those 3 boxes, that's where you get a high performing team, and where they'll want to work for you, they'll want to work for the company, and all of that starts with goal alignment. So the team understand the direction the company's going in, and this is about you delivering the vision to your team in a way that really means something to them. You know, remembering that your team really aren't ever going to work as hard or maybe care quite as much as you do about the company, but there is a way to get them to buy into it where it almost feels like they do, and that begins with goal alignment. There is huge power in this. I've got so many situations that I could share with you, but I'm not going to get distracted by that. You know, and I will talk to you about a situation later where we did this and something else too, and actually it saved the that particular company, that MD, 350 staff hours a month. But I'll come back into what happened to achieve that, because this was a starting place. So after you've aligned goals, then you need to have the right review and adaptation in place. That first, you can understand whether the team is meeting the objectives you set, but second, so they can measure their own progress. You know, that's what we really want here, is them looking at where they are and seeing whether that's like where it needs to be, so that they can keep themselves accountable, and also so that they can feel concerned when they actually need to feel concerned because they're behind, and when they actually need to feel great because they're ahead and they're doing everything. So they need a way to self-review alongside you formally reviewing their progress. And this process needs to be developed month on month, quarter on quarter. That's why I work with people over 6 months. I don't do short-term work on these sorts of things, because these need implementing and refining. You know, you've always got to work on them to evolve them and embed them after implementation. And that's why some of my clients have worked with me for so long. So once you've done the review and adaptation process, we've really got to hit the biggest issue I'm seeing in companies today, after everything I've mentioned, which I know is already quite a lot to think about, but this next bit is crucial. And I'm not saying it to overwhelm you, I'm just saying, based on my experience of doing this, what is required to grow a high-performing team, the holy grail that we all want in today's market. So the last part of support systems is about this, understanding how to communicate with your teams. It's about having the right channels to keep people informed of those things they need to know, so that you successfully implement the strategy, so that you're addressing issues, so that you can track progress and performance, and stop the, dare I say it, like bitching and moaning that happens in every single team. And some of you working in offices or on sites, you'll know all too well what that's like, where there's this constant moaning and people aren't happy or moving forward in the way that they need to. And some of you might not know that's happening, but it is happening everywhere. And if at the moment you're spending chunks of your time on managing all this day-to-day stuff and dealing with things that your team are throwing at you and reacting to problems, unfortunately, you won't be spending enough time in the right business, in the place in your business, to grow it in the way that you want to, so that it's easy to manage and so that it's easy to scale and it's scalable. So that leads me to the final part of this for today, which is all about creating your own strategy for creating a high-performing team. Now, rather than like tell you the steps, I'll show you the steps that I go through to do this, so that they make sense in a context. And these are the steps I take with CEOs and MDs, and how we've managed to hit these results for companies time and again. Case study after case study over the last 12 years I've been doing this. So you need to start with a business management framework. So get clear on your business. So first of all, get clear on your business strategy, and then document it so the team can actually understand it, so that they can implement it and they do all the steps that are needed to actually deliver that strategy, to deliver on your goals. So because what you need are these processes in place, so that you've got a really set way to deliver your strategy every single year on repeat. So that every year you've got a simple process that turns your strategy or goals for the years into actionable steps, which means that you'll have both the processes you need to deliver for your customers and to grow and develop your business too, so that you hit your profit targets and your growth targets. And this is an issue for so many of my clients, because even when they've got business plans or have got an idea about where they want to go, the team just aren't connecting with it in a meaningful way. And I've worked with 3 specific CEOs and MDs on this specific stage over the last 3 months. And for one in particular, their team was actually taking the initiative quite a bit of the time, but then they'd find them working on the wrong things. They were working on tasks that weren't really a priority, and tasks that were a priority that actually commercially would have made a massive difference just weren't getting done. So if I just give you an example of that, one of the directors was working on a staff engagement app. Now, personally, I think staff engagement is massively important, and that's what really all this is about. And so I would totally encourage it. But the problem is they had other fundamental staff and operational problems that just had to be solved first before they could be worrying about measuring engagement, because they didn't even have the resources to do that properly anyway. They just weren't ready for that bit. So we've moved ahead to a step that just at the moment wasn't priority. So the MD needed to implement a business management process that aligned the team's goals with the strategy. And when I did the work with the MD in this business, it created a huge shift in the approach of the team. They stopped doing like this non-value added work or non-value added for today work, and focus their attention on like the important commercial projects and tasks and staff problems that needed to be dealt with. And they're all in progress now, and the MD can see the team's on track because we've got some simple trackers in place. So if they start to fall behind, he can see, and it's creating efficiencies and cost savings. And as I referred to earlier, in one business, they found a 350-hour saving per month on staff by the way that they changed things, that they're now going to use to develop other areas for their business. Because I'm typically working with growing business and they want to free up this resource from non-value added tasks so that they can actually invest that time into growing the business and stuff that's really going to add value. And so having done that now, like the MD can manage and lead and develop the business, and now he can find these efficiencies and he can focus his attention on future business instead of where he was, which was like running to keep up with everything that was happening. So the next step in this process is 4 steps to this particular process. The next step is time maximization. So as it shows here, it's about getting clear on your role as CEO or MD and understanding where your time is really best spent. It's about making sure you're not wasting time on low-level issues, that you're actually doing like the CEO task rather than picking up behind people. And you need to get into a routine so that you've got oversight of the business, but also time to work on business growth, projects that actually excite you, that stuff that you really want to get done, and make sure that you've got a good work-life balance too. So you need to be clear about your role and have your team doing the rest. Now, most CEOs that I work with have trained for years to be technically brilliant in their chosen field, but do find themselves in the CEO role and they're kind of learning it as they go. But just like everybody else, you need to create for yourself a clear structure, a focus and a routine so that you do the things that are needed for your business, because if you're being distracted by day-to-day stuff, then clearly your business will suffer. You'll know that. And I've got lots of CEOs that have actually said to me that they're not entirely certain what they should really be doing like all of the time anyway. And it's a good point, because if you're growing into the role because you maybe own the business or it's new to you and you've not worked alongside a CEO, you would actually be working out as you go along. That makes sense, doesn't it? But fortunately, I have supported MDs and CEOs and I am trained on what these roles need to do. And I recently helped an MD to do this and look at how he was spending his time and maximise it over a period of months. We did this. And he made loads of changes to how he's operating, and gradually, and the structured approach that we took to looking at it, what the role needed to be, and then implemented that, means that we mapped out what needed to change, how we'd make the changes so that it didn't cause a load of operational problems, because you obviously just can't drop all this stuff. But as a result of completing that, he's having fewer meetings, he's having less ad hoc conversations about like operational things. His team are really stepping up. They're suggesting ways to actually develop their functions that add value, like an ops director who produced a whole roadmap of all the changes that he was going to deliver across the next couple of years. They certainly weren't in that place a few months ago. So then the next step is thrive. Now, unfortunately, there probably are things that you're avoiding or you don't like doing if you're like most people. And while you can like delegate kind of the boring routine work that shouldn't really be with you anyway, there will be jobs that you have to do that you also don't like. And I find with CEOs, there's some really common ones, like quite a lot of people don't like having performance conversations, especially where the member of the team isn't doing the job quite as you want it and they're a key person. People find that really quite hard, like someone that you're like really loyal to because they've been with you a long time. Or it could be presentations, or it could be the sales side of your business, or it could be doing the strategic planning, but there's usually something, more than one thing sometimes. And these problems are actually human problems and actually really normal. The key in this, though, is to identify what they are and work through them so they don't hold you up. And I do that with clients all the time because, we obviously can't have our business results affected by sort of like not feeling like doing something. And just to give an example of this, I had a client who didn't like conversations with his team about like mistakes or where their performance wasn't quite as he wanted it to be. He absolutely hated it. We dug into what was driving that kind of thought that was going on. It was, for him, to be honest with you, is because he was scared about how they would take the things that he said. And he thought that he would make the situation worse. So he's just kind of tolerating these results because they weren't terrible, they just weren't really what he needed. And so I worked through that with him in a session, and we actually changed how he perceived that and felt about it, because despite what people think, can actually reset how you feel about things and override these types of feelings of resistance that are causing you to avoid things. Now, for him, having done that, he's dealing with poor performance problems that he's actually avoided in some cases for years. And the best thing is now that he's having some really good conversations, all of which have led to some improvements. And I can't promise my clients that all their team are up to their jobs, but what I can promise is that I'll help you have conversations with them in a way that lands and makes the situation move forward. So the third part of the strategy is to figure out anything that's holding you back and you're avoiding, and why, and make the changes that you need to, so that you're at your best in every situation, so that you do the things that you need to, so that you get the results that you really want. And then the final part of this is about focusing on building a solid team. So the final step is about deciding what needs to change with your team. Like, how can you lead and empower them in a different way that's more effective, so that you get the results you want? And it will just be about honing a few skills, so that you create a high performing team, so that you take them, because most of my clients have got good teams, but they want to move them on, they want to make them great. So when I do this work, particularly with clients, there are 32 leadership behaviours that we look at quickly. We go through them, we identify those where they're a strength, and we identify those that need a bit of tweaking. And just like I do that with my clients, you need to figure out how to hone your leadership skills and the style that you're using, so that you get the best from your team. I've worked with so many people, so many clients on leadership skills throughout my entire working life. And like every skill in business, like leadership skills, they do need to be learned. Many of the CEOs or MDs that I support, they are trained in technical areas, and sometimes I'll find the people things a bit more challenging. And I had a client who was really feeling that, and he felt like he just couldn't make traction with his team. He wasn't influencing them enough. He didn't feel like it was working as he wanted it to. And he was micromanaging things to get them done, and he just didn't think it would be that easy to shift his management style. He just couldn't see another way to be more effective. It just didn't seem possible. And he'd done a bit of leadership training, but the thing is, the reason that it hadn't really worked and he hadn't really been able to do it is because although he knew a bit of the theory, he couldn't apply it. So for him, we identified a handful of leadership skills he needed to develop, and we worked through specific scenarios, like being assertive, for instance, as one of them. And I helped him really hone those skills. And as a result of those new approaches, he told me he's getting much better results from the team. They're responding to him. They commented about how much actually they've enjoyed some of the meetings more recently. And they're really appreciating the things that he's saying now, because he's got so much great stuff to share, but just hadn't been doing it in a way that was really connecting with the team. Now, we didn't spend hours chatting about that and around the theory. We just got stuck into how to do it. And so he could pick the skills up that he needed just really quickly. So if I bring all this together now, what you need to do in order to create a high performing team that are proactive or work through these steps, you need to implement a business management framework that basically makes delivering your strategy systematic every year, so you hit your targets and you're delivering for your customers consistently. Then it's about maximising your time as a CEO, so that you focus on high value tasks and you get yourself out of the weeds of some of the day-to-day operational stuff. The third step is about thriving in your role. So really figuring out those things you're avoiding and work out how to get them done. All those situations where maybe you're not showing up at your best, and instead showing up like as a CEO that you really are. And then finally, it's about developing strong leadership skills, so that you build a solid team that are easy to manage and will give you the platform that you really need to grow your business from a point of strength. So look, I hope that we've covered what we've covered so far has been useful to you. I'm going to come back and check the chat now. Okay. Right, there's quite a lot. There's quite a lot of private things still in here. Okay, let me come back to that. For those of you now who are keen to get this done, I'd like to introduce an opportunity to you that will help you implement these changes quickly, effectively and efficiently. It won't be for everybody. It will only be for those of you that are sat here thinking, yes, I actually want to fix those things in my company and with my team right now so I can grow my business and not feel like hamstringed by these issues. It's only for those people wanting to take action. If you don't want to take action, it definitely isn't for you. But if you're sat here wondering how you can get it working for you, if you're looking to build a team that just doesn't follow your lead, but actually goes out and gets things done for themselves, they're proactive, who actually help you grow the business, then there is an opportunity, which is my Business Accelerator program. Now, this is a program that helps you develop a high-performing team so that you've got the platform and the capability to grow your business. In the Business Accelerator program, we work across 4 core areas like like those I've mentioned to you, so there won't be any surprises for you there. So targets is one of them. So we set up your business management framework, we redefine your goals, we make sure your team are aligned to them, we create simple, understandable strategic plans, and set the right structures, frameworks and processes in place to achieve your goals. Time, so then we'll make sure you're dedicating your time to high value CEO tasks, actually grow the day-to-day business and that aren't about operational issues, as well as making sure that you're striking the right balance between work and personal life. You know, invariably we're probably all going to have to work hard, like running the business, but it's about, you know, let's get the balance of that right. And then thrive. So this is where I'll support you to develop the skills to handle situations that maybe you find challenging at the moment, so that you're doing them, like being effective in those situations where maybe sometimes you struggle, or to deal with those things that are slowing you down, so that you get the best outcome in every situation. So you've got a really like a rounded way of dealing with all of these things. And then finally, the team. So this is where we work together. We'll hone your leadership skills and then raise the capabilities of your team. We'll make sure that they're clear on their expectations and accountable, so that they deliver results and really help you to grow the business. Now, my programs get really great results, and you'll see that across all my reviews. They're on like LinkedIn and on Google, and my website, so you'll find them in various different places. Now, this is a 6-month program. You need 3 hours a month for it to be working with me, and anything outside of the work we do together will be activities that you actually needed to do in your role anyway, so there's not a whole load of studying. It's practical, it's well paced, it's actionable, it's to support you make these shifts, to implement your business frameworks and to hone your approach to leading the team. And so the way that it works is it's a blend of mentoring, guidance and coaching. So that's the 3 hours we spend together, but I'll also give you the frameworks and the tools so that you can lift and pretty much drop some of them, most of them, into your business. Some of them will need a bit of tweaking. Plus, we've got a WhatsApp channel that we'll talk through. So if at any point in the month, you can ask me a question or bounce an idea off me, so that you don't get held up on something that you're trying to implement. Now, I'm offering a limited number of strategy calls today to discuss how you can get those results that you want from your team. And on the call, we go through where you are now, where you want to be, and then we'll map out a plan. I've only got a limited amount of time in the next 2 weeks to do those. So, and I've only got the capacity to take on 3 people at the moment. I don't run this program with lots and lots of people at any one time, because I'm invested in you and your success. So at the moment I've got the capacity for 3 people. So if you have a look and you want one of those calls, you can't find a time in my diary, then just DM me or email me, and we'll try and make something happen. And, you know, if you want one of those strategy calls, it will be because you can imagine what it would feel like to have a team that runs like a really well-oiled machine, where each team member is like confident, they're capable, they're aligned with the results you want and taking action, because you can picture like the peace of mind that will come with knowing the business is growing, not just because of your hard work, but because the team that you've built is truly helping you to grow it, and because you want this freedom to focus on what truly matters to you, whether that's taking the business forward and growing it more, having more quality time for yourself, or just simply to be able to enjoy the success that you've worked really hard for. So look, I hope that's been really helpful for you today. I'm going to open up for Q&A now, and I'm going to go through the chat because I know that I've neglected that, but I'm always minded to get through in the time that I'd said, and we run 2 minutes over, not too bad. So let's see where we are. So if you want to just pop any questions into the question answer, I took quite a lot last time, so do feel free to ask any questions you've got. Really super happy to answer any for you. So let's see where we are. What I find happens here is that people will stay on the call to see what other people ask, which is great, but you know, please do ask any questions that you've got, because I'm super happy to answer them. So what we've got here in the chat, I've got some saying most employees are responsive but require coaching, which takes time. Yes, that can be the case. And they do need coaching, but I don't know that it needs to take too much time. So I guess it depends on how much time you're wanting to spend doing it. But I tend to find that that doesn't have to take a long time. As a new MD, getting buy into the process is proving tricky due to all hands to the pump. Yeah, there's going to be, for that, a change management piece that you need to be doing, which is part of the, like when I talk about a business management framework, that's also about how do you manage change. And again, it doesn't need a lot loads of work around it. It just needs proper planning and consideration about how it's all going to land and the sorts of messaging that you'll do. So yeah, I think that's about finding a quick way to implement change and be able to make sure it's embedded and followed up. Because, like, obviously you'll know, telling people something once, trying to engage them in it isn't enough. So there's a few steps there to take, but they can be straightforward. Okay, look, where are we now with people? So I've still got quite a lot of people on. So has anybody got a question that they are sitting there thinking about asking? Pop it into the Q&A or message me privately if you want to. Super happy with that. It seems like lots of people have done that today. So where are we? Any other questions? I'll just give a couple more minutes and then I'll close it down if we think that nobody's going to ask anything. Oh, here we go. Something's going on. Is there not a risk of you operating on a different beat rate after engaging with someone like yourself? And is that something you explore, e.g.? Yes. So I think what you're saying to me there is the possibility that you are off excelling and then the team are sort of struggling behind you. I think that's what you're asking me. That this is absolutely about how do you shift your approach, because most of the people I work with are fairly good at what they do already. It's about this is about nuances and shifts that you need to make. And what you'll find is that there'll only be probably tweaks that you need to make in order to be able to get better results from your team. It's just that typically when you're in the situation, you just can't see what that is. And I find that all the time, and people will sometimes say to me, that's really obvious now, like you said it and we've done it, but you just can't see it because you're in it. You know, it's the same for for anyone with any problem they've got. It's very hard when you're inside of it to deal with it. So absolutely, you will be raising the game of your team, and you'll also be putting in some really simple processes so that they naturally self-review and assess anyway, and it just becomes a natural way of being, a kind of rhythm of operating, and it won't feel like a big shift. These don't feel like massive things. It probably sounds massive because we just talked about all of it in one go, but as we do the business management framework, you might go off and do one part of it and implement it, and you'll involve the team in it, and then you'll do the next step. And before you know it, you've not built up this massive corporate process that you might be imagining, I don't know, but you'd have just built up some simple frameworks and processes that the team can engage with and actually make sure that they're getting stuff done and make things a bit more concrete for them than they have been. Okay, so I don't know if that answers the question for you, Kai, but that's my experience of this, is that you don't end up operating, you flying and then sort of all dragging behind, because actually this is about how do you get the team to sort of make this step change in their performance that you want to see. So I can hear my watch buzzing away, so I think probably I've got people booking in calls, which is super good. Okay, so anybody got any other questions? People having to go. Thank you. Right, okay, looks like we might be done. If anybody's got any more questions and you haven't asked them now, then you'll find me on LinkedIn, or you've got my email address, so just pop them across and I'm really happy to help. So I look forward to joining some of you on some calls soon, and thank you very much for your time today. It's been great.